Next speaker is through S. Muhammad Yusuf, Lecturer, Department of History, Abdul Hakim College, Melvishar.
Respected dignitaries of dais and my dear audience, good afternoon to everybody. I am going to present a paper on United Nations and the role of India in United Nations. The two great wars, the First World War, Second World War, had produced This wars caused the heavy loss to the countries involved in these great dangerous wars, which faced the world, defaced the world map. 6 crores of people of various countries lost their lives. In order to avoid this kind of another world war in future, to reconstruct the annihilated world, to settle all the border and other international problems, the great powers decided to have a common organization to avoid this kind of the nuisance in future. These tenets of Charter, United Nations tenets are very closely to our foreign principle, the foreign policy of our India. For example, India's foreign policy ought to achieve peace to secure emancipation of the oppressed nation, elimination of race discrimination, non-intervention in the internal affairs of other countries. Moreover, we felt that biggest question today is the question of war and peace and disarmament. Right from the first days of India's independence, Jawaharlal Nehru called for support and encouragement for the United Nations so as to help in to be something like a world government or world order. United Nations organization is an important instrument of peace. All the other disputes of the member countries are being settled in amicable manner. Instead of asking what UNO has achieved, we should ask that if UNO was not there, what would have been happened? Then only we will get the suitable answer. 2 world wars have produced dangerous results. Hence, India's stand on the issue of war and peace favored the worldwide effort to strengthen the peace on our planet. Nehru thought that the best policy that India and other developing countries should pursue in order to consolidate world peace was non-alignment. India is a permanent member of UNO. It participated in the conference of San Francisco and signed in all the papers, all the peace treaties of the UNO. Since that conference, till date, India is not only supporting the UNO, but it also actively participating in almost all debates and measures taken by the UNO. Being India a permanent member in the General Council of UNO, many leaders of India, just like Jawaharlal Nehru too, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, they have actively participated in almost all the debates and they work for the disarmament and they wanted to create a new world, that is a warless world. Moreover, whenever the problems and issues raised against the racial discrimination and forcible encouragement, India was the first country who raised the voice against this kind of the attitude. So, not only with that, so many occasions India had participated and India had sent its dignitaries as well as the representatives to raise its voice. Almost all sorts of for example, the representative of Lebanon as well as most of the issues regarding the Kashmir, Lebanon and Laos and so many problems which were brought to the notice of the United Nations organization, it was supported and India never hesitated to say the correct, the correct judgment against the defaulter. In this manner, almost all sorts of the problem which were brought to the notice of the UNO, it it has extended its valuable support to almost all sorts of the, the measures which were taken by the United Nations. Thank you for this
Thank you very
opportunity.
much. The next speaker is Thiru E. Achut, a student from the Department of Mathematics, Vaishnav College.
Respected elders and gentlemen, I come here to talk on topic United Nations and human rights. United Nations is an international organization whose members are sovereign, independent countries. It is neither a superstate nor a world government. It does not make any laws. One of its main aims is to promote respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Even the preamble to the UN Charter states that we, the people of UN, are determined to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of human person, in equal rights of men and women, and of nations, large and small. But what are these so-called human rights? Human rights are those moral rights which are owed to each man or woman by every man or woman solely by reason of being human. They are distinguished from other moral rights in possessing the following inherent characteristics: universality, individuality, paramountcy, practicability, and enforceability. Universality. Morris Cranston has asserted that human rights differ from other moral rights in being rights of all people at all times and in all situations. One has to recognize that universal claims made in the name of all are often in practice claims on behalf of the existing deprived against more fortunate minorities to surrender the privileges. Claims to universal rights must be seen as claims to which one can establish a universal entitlement rather than claims to which are universal support. Universal rights necessarily preclude any discriminations or exclusion, whether on the grounds of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Individuality. The concept of rights is grounded in and derives much of its support and coloring from the acceptance of man as a free individual, a being of dignity and worth, endowed with reason and conscience, and capable of moral choice and free activity. Where that value is not accepted, there is no place for rights as a right, but only for rights as of concession or of custom. Human rights are the rights of individuals to meet the needs and purposes of individuals. But since some needs and purposes can only be met by individuals acting in concert, it is necessary to recognize the rights of individuals to associate together and the rights of association so formed to operate freely under the law. While human rights are the rights of individuals, they are first and foremost rights against society rather than against other individuals, since it is the society's responsibility to ensure that rights concerned are given legal force and upheld against persons and bodies within the community. Paramountcy. Morris Cranston, rights of human rights being something which no one can be deprived without a grave affront to justice. There are certain deeds which should never be done, certain freedoms which should never be invaded, something which are supremely sacred. Practicability. Practicability is an issue with all human rights, not just economic and social rights, since resources are always required either for their realization or their protection. But whereas with economic and social rights, the resources devoted to buildings, equipment, and personnel are required to provide a direct service. In the case of traditional liberty rights, they are required to protect persons against interference with their rights. The right to free primary education for all is a clearly defined right which each parent has for his or her own children, a right which can be cashed in at the local school. Enforceability. The issue of international enforceability of human rights is a very complex one. Even in a tightly knit and integrated body like the European Economic Community, it may take years to enforce a human right. Even if the provisions of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights were brought in line with those of the European Convention on Human Rights, it would still be open to any United Nations member state not to permit individual applications and not to be bound by judicial decisions. This is not to say that a strengthening of the enforcement provisions of the United Nations International Covenants is not to be decided, but only to stress that such a strengthening would not in itself bring about substantial reductions in human rights violation in violating states. Thus, human rights enforcement is essentially a matter of domestic politics rather than of international law. The basic problem in the enforcement of human rights is the Security Council. It is one of the main organs of the United Nations, without which the functioning of the United Nations is not possible. The permanent members of the Security Council are United States of America, United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. As they are all developed countries, they don't know the problems faced by developing and underdeveloped countries. As a result, the human rights of the developing and underdeveloped countries go unenforced. To come out of such a situation, the United Nations must be reshuffled, mainly the Security Council, and some of the developed and underdeveloped countries should be made the permanent members. Some of the underdeveloped countries cannot even provide the basic necessities, food, clothing, and shelter, as they don't have enough money for providing them. This affects the mentality of the people, basically of the youth. Youth is a stage when children cannot withstand any atrocities, as a result of which they become terrorists. So just 2 minutes. That is why terrorism is at a rise in many developing and underdeveloped countries. The superpowers do not know about the problems faced by the developing and underdeveloped countries, but often complain of human rights violation and impose economic sanctions against the countries. To conclude, to eliminate the human rights violation and to enforce the laws practically, the United Nations, mainly the Security Council, should be restructured, and the underdeveloped and developing countries should be included, so that the smooth running of the United Nations is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Achyut.
Respected Chairman and other dignitaries, professors on the dais, and also the various paper presenters and authors, I stand before you to propose a vote of thanks. And I especially thank and extend my and our trust thanks to Dr. V.C. Kulandasamy for his valuable and memorable ideas, speech on this great occasion, and also to the Professor Ranganathan, Faizur Rahman, Mr. Munusamy, Gauri Sivaraman, and not least the schoolgirl, and others who had given reasonable and valuable ideas towards a new formation of United Nations. Thank you. And I expect all of you to be here for the lunch and also remain here up to 4:45 for the next session, because the trust is going to give a participation certificate to all the delegates who had here in the conference hall. And evening there will be a concluding session, and Mr. C. Subramaniam and Ananda Krishnan, Vice Chancellor of Anna University, are going to attend and deliver a speech. Be kindly, have a patience to be here and attend the conference. Thank you.